Hello, Winnie. Friday. Are you chasing Beatrice around the house now? Oh gosh, that must be so much fun. We got a beautiful video this morning of the two girls having breakfast, and just fantastic to see. Hope everybody's well. I don't know how many people went to the board meeting last night, but obviously there were some decisions made, as there always are at board meetings. And last night the school board decided on a new calendar for the school. And today, in this email that I send you a link to this video, I'm including a copy of the newest edition, if you will, of the rotate schedule for school. Since next week came up kind of quickly, next week hasn't changed. We're going to, yes, it changed that we're having school, but the rotation will be very similar to this week. In other words, it'll just continue from this day, Friday, to Monday. But then thereafter, when we have those 4-day weeks, we have decided to move to a 1-2-3-4, 1-2-3-4 rotation, meaning the first day of the week, Monday, will be day 1, second day of the week, day 2, and so forth and so on. So the students know what that means, and I've included a note to them as well in the email that I sent this evening. There is also a link on the front page of the school website that shows the modified school calendar is there. We've deleted the one that used to be there, and now the one that's there is the modified one. So if you need to go further than the email I gave you, you can check out the school website and see it there. We are working on some spirit days for kids, for the students at the middle school. So the counselors have told them to start thinking about those things, because even though we're not at school, we want to have full participation. So those spirit days will require some clothing changes and things like that. And so they've asked them to like consider digging deeper into the drawers and perhaps not, going with the same clothing every single day. I don't mean the exact same clothing, but I think you know what I mean by that. I myself attended the board meeting a little bit last night, and I think I saw Dr. Christinino laugh when I said that since it was a board meeting, I actually brought a board with me. I don't know if everybody thought that was funny, but whatever. They asked me to stand in the garage and say hello to them, so I did that, and so I threw that little bit of humor in there as well. Many of you perhaps have seen the Friday flag salute this morning, and I wanted to explain something to you because people are wondering who is that guy in the video, and it was really nice of Mr. Scara to get up early and to come to my neighborhood and jog down the street to join me in the salute to the flag. So thank you, Mr. Scara, and I think everybody got a big kick out of that. So many people emailed me and said, that looked like Mr. Scara, but I know he doesn't live near you, but in fact, we had planned that well in advance, so I hope you all got a kick out of that. So I don't have a guest tonight, and that's not even a fakie. You're not about to hear somebody say hello. It's Friday, and we're going to make this pretty brief, but I did want to share something with the students this afternoon and ask them to perhaps think about something. And what I'd like them to think about is that we have a lot of time on our hands these days, and I want them to start thinking about being a little bit more creative in their lives, because I think it gets too easy to let the days go on and on and on. As you can see by the new calendar, boys and girls, we are in for the long haul. So we are going to have a lot of free time on our hands, and I think we can get a little bit creative in our spare time, and that is whatever you think creativity is. If you've ever wanted to play an instrument and there's one in the house, why not give it a try? If there's paint in the house and you've always thought about painting, go for it. Gardening, whatever you have, within the reach of your arms, give it a shot. You can't make any mistakes. And one thing I can assure you, none of your friends are going to be looking over your shoulder saying that what you're doing doesn't make any sense. It really is a great time to be creative and free without worrying about social media or people asking you to go elsewhere. Like, you can design your time. You can put away an hour in your brain after dinner or during the day on the weekends and just say, I'm going to try this. And in that mode, I did want to share something with you that I brought in here tonight. When I was in college, a very long time ago, I went to school in New Hampshire, a very small school, and we were very lucky that one of our English professors was in the realm of writers, and he knew a lot of writers who were professional poets and things like that. And one of the people that he introduced me to is Donald Hall. Donald Hall was well-regarded poet who had been for 50 years a well-known poet, and he lived nearby the school in New Hampshire, and he came one night to give a reading. We had a beautiful church on the property, and he gave a reading in the chapel, and one of the things he read that evening was about a poem he wrote called "Kicking the Leaves." And I never forgot it because it reminded me of my own time growing up in Springfield, New Jersey. And, we used to rake the leaves and jump and run in them. And we used to spend a lot of time outside in the parks and things like that. And when the fall came and the leaves came down. So his poem resonated with me. And I thought I would share a small passage with you tonight and then talk a little bit about my life after college with Donald Hall. So he wrote, and this is just one stanza of a dozen, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. One Saturday when I was little before the war, my father came home at noon from his half day at the office and wore his Bates sweater, black on red, with the crossed hockey sticks on it, and raked beside me in the backyard and tumbled in the leaves with me, laughing, and carried me, laughing, my hair full of leaves, to the kitchen window, where my mother could see us and smile and motion to set me down, afraid I would fall and be hurt. So he read that and many others that evening in the chapel, and I never forgot it. And one night I was, one day, doing some cleanup in the attic, and I found an old box from my college days, and in it was the school newspaper that I helped produce at the school that had a review of his reading from the chapel 30 years ago. And I took that out of the attic and I cut a piece, I cut the review out of it and I mailed it to him in New Hampshire. I found out that he was still living in New Hampshire, and I mailed it to him in New Hampshire, and I told him that I never thanked him for coming to the school and reading to us that day, but I did want to now, even though it was 30 years later. And I wanted to tell him how much I appreciated his poetry, and since then have actually bought his book, one of his books, and I enjoy reading his poetry from time to time. He wrote me back and said this. Now, this was written back to me in 2005, so this letter is 16 years old. Dear Frank Geiger, thank you for your letter of thanks 30 years afterwards. If I ever saw that newspaper clip, I don't remember. I thank you for it. I do remember the reading. Ed Germain, my professor, had been a student of mine when I taught at Michigan. I'm glad you're still writing, and thank you for sending me your poem and for everything else. Best wishes, Donald Hall. So that came from his, he actually lived on Eagle Pond Farm in Wilmot, New Hampshire, but he has since passed. But it was quite interesting for me to find out that about 2 months after he wrote back to me, he became the poet laureate for the United States of America. And so he was a very well-accomplished poet, and I'm quite proud of that letter. I enjoy the fact that I had a minor connection with him before we lost him. But I bring that up tonight, students, because I think in the future, we're going to find that the creative things that go on in our lives are going to be much more important than they are now. Even when we're allowed to get outside, I think your parents are going to want to hold you close. I think families are going to want to stay a little more tightly knit. And I'm suggesting to you that you have plenty of time to get creative, plenty of times to write creatively. And I would love it, and I mean that sincerely, if you took time this weekend and wrote something that you thought was of a creative mind and shared it with me. I'd be more than happy to respond to that email. So that's the challenge as we head into this new school year of 4-day weeks. Take a day, and yeah, sleep late. I agree. But do something with the rest of the day. And with that, I will say good night. Thank you all for watching. As always, keep the faith. Love to you all, and have a wonderful weekend.